This is me, a multi-millionaire businessman watching 40 movies about money and success so that I can break down the secret lessons hidden within. These range from relatively unknown films to famous classics. But why these 40? Well, I want to see if the more popular movies like this $1.6 billion trilogy can teach you more about making money than smaller underground films like this $1 million movie. Rogue Trader is a true story based on the life of a guy called Nick Leeson. He was a top trader in Britain's oldest investment bank, Barings, but he ended up losing billions of dollars from conducting extremely risky trades. Although this is an extreme situation, I've seen this type of thing happen time and time again. Nick had a lot of success early on in his life, and due to this, actually thought he was more skilled than he really was. That's why if you want to get rich, and more importantly stay there, you need to be able to tell the difference between luck and skill. Remember, a bull market is a fool's paradise. Anyone can make money out of it. On the topic of luck, Willy Wonka hid 5 golden tickets in his products and promised a tour of his factory and a huge mystery prize. If you think about it, this promotion is excellent because it generates interest in Wonka products, builds brand awareness, and most importantly, significantly increases sales. This strategy was so good that Mr. Beast even used it when he was promoting his chocolate company Feastables. This teaches us to think outside of the box when we're promoting any type of product or service. Now from something quite light-hearted to exposing the entire financial system. Inside Job raked in $7.9 million at the box office, and in a nutshell explains how the deregulation of the financial sector since the 1980s gave rise to an increasingly criminal industry, causing a succession of financial crises. Each crisis was worse than the last. The people responsible for losing trillions rarely get punished and often make millions in the process. The big takeaway is to become a banker and start robbing people. But no, seriously, this film shows you how corrupt the system is, and that you're much better off using your money to improve your skills and start some kind of side hustle rather than letting the bankers take complete control over everything. If you go down the route of starting a side hustle, then you need to see Alec Baldwin's Always Be Closing speech from Glen-Garry, Glen Ross. The film follows 4 real estate salesmen who find out that the 2 lowest performing team members will be fired by the end of the week. As you can imagine, this situation starts a ruthless competition between the characters. This film makes you realize that everyone is in a huge competition, and if you want to start a money-making venture, then it will require persistence, determination, and a willingness to use whatever tactics necessary to close deals. So remember,
A, always, B, C, closing. Always be closing. Always be closing.
Now I want you to imagine you've struck it big and you're in charge of a huge investment firm, but it all comes crashing down to earth when you discover your assets are worthless. Would you hold on and try to reduce the damage, or sell off all the bad assets before everyone else realizes that they're worthless? Well, that's the exact position the characters in Margin Call find themselves in. Although the film is fictional, it mirrors the same mistake that many real-life companies made before the 2008 economic collapse. They were too heavily invested in a single kind of flawed product. This has a very clear lesson for everybody, and I can boil it down to one word: diversification. Even if you don't own an investment firm, you should still make sure you're investing in a broad range of products and industries, and do as much research as possible on what you're buying. A company that understands this better than most is McDonald's, as shown in The Founder. Originally, the company was run by the McDonald brothers, who knew how to run a successful restaurant. However, they didn't feel like they could maintain the same high quality over multiple restaurants, so instead, they focused on just one. That all changed once Ray Kroc came in with a bigger vision. He mastered the art of business expansion through a franchise model, leading to McDonald's becoming the most popular restaurant in the world. Believe it or not though, McDonald's actually makes most of its money through real estate rather than flipping burgers. But we've got to move on to the next movie, so if you're interested in that, go and watch the film. Boiler Room is a film all about how people use high-pressure tactics or sometimes legally questionable methods to rope people into buying penny stocks they don't really want or understand, all in the hopes of getting rich. Seeing this in action can help you avoid these dangers yourself, even in these more modern variations such as crypto coins and fake guru scams on social media. Now, let's pause for a second. This video is all about getting rich, but what does that actually mean? To me, being rich is far more than money. It's about having a sense of purpose in your life. American Psycho demonstrates perfectly the perils of just chasing a superficial existence. You can see that he clearly hates his friends, his job, and his fiancée. However, he goes through all of the motions just so that he can show off his status to others, and in the process, gradually loses all of his humanity as he cuts himself off from everything actually meaningful. The film Steve Jobs shows how in order to be successful, no one can be an island. The beginning of the movie portrays someone so unwilling to relinquish control over what he's attempting that he ultimately causes some damage. Predictably, when the original Macintosh fails to sell, Steve Jobs loses his position with Apple. However, his success story begins as soon as he rejoins Apple and starts working with others. So if Steve Jobs couldn't do it alone, then neither can you. But how much risk should you take if you want to become wealthy? Well, The Gambler follows a guy called Jim Bennett. By day, he's an average professor. However, by night, he spends his time gambling in sketchy casinos. The film gets really interesting when you realise that Bennett is playing to lose so that he can free himself from the privileges that he's received from his grandfather and start afresh. Although I don't recommend gambling, I can get on board with the idea that if you never put anything on the line, you'll never have the opportunity to gain anything. Great things are never achieved by playing it safe all the time. A big part of my journey was my mentor. He taught me a lot about money, and that's probably why I like Wallstreet so much, as it follows a wide-eyed young man wanting to make his fortune. My biggest takeaway from this film is the saying, money never sleeps. This lesson was first taught to the lead character by an older mentor. Although the quote may have become a bit cliche by now due to its frequent use, its lessons are still as valid as ever. Money never sleeps. It either works for you or against you. If you have money invested in certain assets, they can generate continuous profits for you even after you stop working. However, if you have a loan, the interest on it can accumulate while you sleep, slowly draining your wealth. The key is to have more money working for you than against you. This is where today's sponsor Moomoo comes in. If you're interested in building wealth, then you're really going to want to listen to this. It's a powerful investing platform founded in Silicon Valley with over 20 million users worldwide. You can trade stocks straight from your laptop, iPad or smartphone, whether in the United States, Australia or Singapore. It's even commission free for US residents investing in US securities. I personally really like the free tool they offer, which allows you to see what famous institutions have invested in and what sectors are performing best. As a beginner, you can also practice your trading ideas with a demo account before entering the market. If you sign up today using the link in the description, you can receive up to 16 free stocks, each worth between $3,000 and $2,000, plus a share of Tesla or Google when you deposit $5,000. That's a great deal, as these free stocks can help you build your portfolio right away and get a head start. It's no secret that rich people buy real estate, and if you want to be rich, then at some point you will have to master this investment. The Money Pit follows a couple that managed to buy a house for a suspiciously low amount. Although it's a comedy, it shares a lot of lessons about buying your first house. The main one being to avoid buying a house with tons of problems like the main characters, hence the title of the film. They just keep pouring money into an endless pit. If they're just paid for an inspection, they could have avoided all of the trouble. You can't assume that people will tell you the truth. However, you should always tell the truth. This is drilled home by Scarface. Being sincere and saying what you mean will help people trust you. If you're someone who keeps their word, doing business with you will be easy. While the truth may not always be pleasant or nice to hear, facing it is crucial to succeeding in life. even if it hurts. Although telling the truth doesn't mean you will always be believed, Andy Dufresne from The Shawshank Redemption was wrongly accused of murdering his wife and her lover and was sent to prison. This is one of my favourite films as it really shows the power of persistence. Despite being falsely accused, Andy spends over 20 years in prison and relentlessly chips away at the wall until he tunnels his way out. While it's only a film and not real life, the message it sends out is an important one. I've seen in my own life how important persistence is for achieving success. It's crucial to persevere when things get tough, otherwise you'll struggle to achieve your goals. It's also equally important to be resourceful. In There Will Be Blood, the protagonist, Daniel Plainview, who owns an oil business, adopts a child after the boy's father is killed in an oil drilling accident. He later realises he can use the kid as an asset to manipulate the townsfolk to allow him to drill on their land by presenting himself as a family man. This teaches us the lesson of using our resources, including the people around us, to achieve our goals. I know you might be thinking, that just sounds like a way of saying take advantage of others, but the lesson is more to make the most of what you've got and stay true to yourself. Joy sums up this lesson really well. It's loosely based on the entrepreneurial journey of the real-life Joy Mangano, who was an infomercial titan who first rose to success in the 90s. A core moment of the film is when Joy rejected QVC makeup and wardrobe suggestions for her appearance and instead used her natural look. This authenticity came through to customers. Nowadays, your personal brand is more important than ever, and only you know what feels authentic. I have to say this with a few caveats though, because if you're addicted to shopping like Becky in Confessions of a Shopaholic, then you're going to run into a few problems. You see, one of the biggest silent wealth killers is credit card debt, especially on-store credit cards. Becky was quick to open store-branded credit cards, thinking that she was building a loyal relationship with these stores and the designers she admired. On the surface, store-branded credit cards seem like a great deal, and what's not to like? They often include perks like free shipping, reward points for merchandise, and in some cases, exclusive card holder only deals. But that's all to distract you from the extremely high interest rates. I can't stress this enough. Never get one of these cards and always pay back any credit card debt in full at the end of each month to avoid all interest. From a chick flick film to one all about sport and winning, Moneyball. This film asks the question, what happens when you have a limited budget but still want to win against all the odds? The answer is, of course, to innovate and think out of the box. In the film, Billy Beane needs to put together a winning team on a low budget, so he comes up with a unique solution. With the help of a young Yale economics graduate, he assembles a team of undervalued talent using a specialized algorithm defying traditional methods of talent scouting. To emphasize this point from a money perspective, bear this in mind. If you don't innovate fast, disrupt your industry, disrupt yourself, you will be left behind. Anticipating disruption is crucial as circumstances can change in the blink of an eye. This concept is exemplified in the movie Trading Places, where two rich men make a bet about nature versus nurture. They conduct an experiment that involves framing an employee for a crime that he didn't commit and then installing a street-smart criminal in his position. The movie clearly illustrates how things can change unexpectedly due to factors outside of your control. Therefore, it's essential to be prepared for the roller coaster ride with many ups and downs along the way. In The Big Short, Michael Burry profits from a huge disruption in the housing market. He strategically maneuvers money throughout the film as he sees the housing market is built like a house of cards and set to crash. This willingness to question authority and go against group thinking is essential for success, as no one changed the world by thinking like everyone else. You can also learn a great deal about how the stock market works, especially when it comes to shorting the market, which is essentially betting against it in the hopes of making money. I thought we'd be able to learn a lot from this next film because of its name, The Accountant. but it turns out it's more of an action film than an informative one. It follows Christian Wolf, an effective accountant that is hired to find financial deceptions and embezzlements for criminal organisations. Nevertheless, it still offers an insight as to how the rich use assets like gold and paintings to hide their wealth from the government. How would you like to take a pill and be magically transformed into one of the most successful entrepreneurs of our time? Well, that's exactly what happens in Limitless, and it leads to many near-death experiences. Therefore, it teaches us that there is no substitute for hard work when it comes to achieving long-term success. It takes hard work and dedication to bridge the gap between learning how to become an entrepreneur and actually being one. Now, I know a lot of people think entrepreneurship is risky, but the reality is, it can be equally as risky having a job. Up in the Air follows Ryan, an employee of an American human resources consultancy firm that specializes in employment termination assistance. He travels around the country conducting company layoffs on behalf of employers. One interesting aspect of the film is when a new co-worker suggests the company could reduce costs by conducting everything through video calls. Ryan is against this proposal because he believes it fails to meet the emotional needs of his customers. This reminds me of a Steve Jobs quote.
You've got to start with the customer experience and work backwards to the technology. It started with what incredible benefits can we give to the customer? Where can we take the customer?
If Apple takes customer experience so seriously, then maybe we should also think about this in our side hustles and life in general. Hopefully you're feeling quite excited to become an entrepreneur. Maybe you're starting to think of some great side hustle ideas, but if the secret life of Walter Mitty can teach us anything, it's to stop dreaming and start doing. The movie centers around Walter Mitty, a shy guy who frequently daydreams and loses focus. His thoughts remain just that, thoughts, as he fails to take any action to make them a reality. It's important to remember that while it's good to have dreams, spending too much time dreaming can lead to less time actively pursuing them. The one thing that limits the success of entrepreneurs has to be that many get to a point and just stop learning. This is why I connect with The Intern. It follows Ben, a 70-year-old retiree who's full of life and constantly trying new things. He's given the chance to work as a senior intern for a successful online fashion store. With the help of his younger co-workers and his grandson, who explains what a USB is to him, he learns how to operate a computer from scratch. This shows that you should always keep learning, otherwise you stop progressing. I've always lived my life by this philosophy and it served me well. I love this next one as it combines my love of aeroplanes and business. It is, of course, the Aviator, a billionaire obsessed with designing and promoting new aircraft. His management style could be best described as a little neurotic and crazy. There were lots of times when he'd say, "Here's what I want, make it happen." But in other areas, he wanted things to such a high specification that he had to micromanage them. If you try to micromanage every part of your life, then you're going to be wiped out. Pick your battles and micromanage the areas you really care about. For the rest of it, trust the people you've chosen to be around you. Some of the richest people in the world couldn't have gotten there without the right team of people around them. This is very true for Mark Zuckerberg. One interesting aspect of his journey, as depicted in The Social Network, is how he turned his pain from a breakup into motivation to start his first successful website. The site allowed college students to rate the attractiveness of their peers, which resulted in Zuckerberg realizing that people are interested in knowing more about the people they know. This teaches us that even negative experiences can be turned into something positive if we channel our emotions in the right direction. It's important to find the silver lining in difficult situations and use them as fuel for growth and success. Good Will Hunting shares a similar lesson of confronting hard times and working through past trauma in order to move forward in life. The main character is a genius, but works as a janitor. The film deals with his difficulty accepting his past and moving on. This teaches us that we are all capable of more than we give ourselves credit for, and we shouldn't let our past hold us back. Now it's time for the real heavy hitters, The Godfather Part 1, 2 and 3. The Godfather is more than a movie. It's a guide to life, offering endless lessons on how to handle every situation you may encounter. Here's what I take from this. Be cautious when mixing friendship and money. The quote, "Friendship and money, oil and water," highlights the potential for irrational behaviour when money is involved. Now we're into the top 10. You might start recognising lots of these movies. Let's kick it off with Jerry Maguire. I mean, you've probably heard this quote before. Show me the money! But despite how this film looks on the surface, it's actually about Jerry putting his clients above his desire for short-term cash. This causes him to get fired initially, but in the long run, this approach creates loyal customers and a sustainable business. This is a valuable lesson in playing the long game rather than being so focused on making quick money that you miss the bigger picture. The Pursuit of Happiness has one of my favourite scenes in any film ever. Chris, the main character, takes his son to play some basketball on the rooftop, and he shares his dream of one day going pro. Chris explains that he wasn't very good at basketball when he was growing up, and knowing how genetics works, his son shouldn't expect to be any more than an average player at max. But then he sees the disappointment on his son's face and delivers this line.
Don't ever let somebody tell you you can't do something. Not even me. You got a dream, you got to protect it. People can't do something themselves. They want to tell you you can't do it. You want something, go get it. Period.
This doesn't just sound nice and inspirational, it's very true. People will try and pull you down, but you can't let that happen. Otherwise you'll become just like them in later life. You have to break the cycle, just like Will Smith's character does. Frank Abagnale certainly doesn't let anything hold him back in Catch Me If You Can. Frank is a kid who manages to trick people into thinking he's a teacher, pilot, doctor and lawyer, all while getting chased down by the FBI. The remarkable thing about all of this is it's based on a true story. This really shows that you can shift anyone's perception of you by presenting yourself well and having confidence. People are so busy looking at the uniform Frank wears and being taken in by the persona he carries that they miss the main clue that he's only a young boy. So of course, he can't be the people he pretends to be. This pursuit of wealth and status isn't a bad thing, but it's important to remember money can't buy you love or friends, which is a lesson drilled home by the great Gatsby. The story follows Gatsby, a man that built his wealth in order to tempt back his long-lost love Daisy, who is now married. Gatsby attempts to woo Daisy with his lavish parties and home, but ultimately he fails, mostly because her husband informs her of the truth. He made his fortune illegally. While I do think money can bring you happiness, you have to know how to use it and be aware of its limitations. A theme I've noticed popping up a lot in these movies is that money is evil, and it's often painted as a kind of villain that corrupts the main character. I fundamentally disagree with this. That's probably why I like this quote from The Wolf of Wall Street.
Now, if anyone here thinks I'm superficial or materialistic, go get a job at f***ing McDonald's, because that's where you f***ing belong.
Now I know this may sound harsh, but this is the extent to which Jordan Belfort idolises money. He says money is everything, and although I'm not as extreme in my views, I do think it's very important to put finances as a top priority in your life, because if you fix your money issues, then it will give you the freedom to do whatever you want. Hopefully that's not robbing 3 casinos like in Ocean's 11, but jokes aside, this film can teach us a lot, so bear with me. At the beginning of the story, the main character, upon release from prison, immediately recruits a trusted partner and begins an epic strategy to execute an insane con. After developing the blueprints for his master plan, they assemble a team of 11 top talents, including an electronics expert, a pickpocket, and an acrobat. Interestingly, the process resembles that of quitting your job and starting a business. Through my years in business, I've come to believe that entrepreneurship is simply the act of building your Ocean's 11 and strategically involving top talent to help your business dominate. This act of quitting your job is often described as escaping, The Matrix. This trilogy has made over $1.6 billion at the box office. The Matrix is a fake reality that people's minds are trapped in, while their bodies are used as batteries to power the artificial intelligence that has now taken over the planet. Keanu Reeves plays Neo, a character who is presented with a choice: take the red pill or the blue pill. The Matrix in our world is the 9-to-5 grind, and the red pill you need to swallow in order to escape it is entrepreneurship. The transition from blue to the red pill must be made gradually. Just as Neo had to educate himself to train hard to prepare for his battles, the awakened wannabe entrepreneur must do the same. So, after watching all of these films, it's clear that the most iconic lines come from the most popular flicks, but there are certainly some hidden gems in the less popular movies. So when you next watch a film, try to find the inspiration within and use it to your advantage. If you want to know 50 rules you need to follow to grow your wealth, then I'm going to leave that video right up there. But don't click on it just yet. Make sure to subscribe if you want to grow your wealth. Okay, I'll see you over there.